just like in contract law, whoever the writer is of the contract owns the aspect of ambiguity, which means if it isn't overwhelmingly clear, the one who wrote the contract is really at fault, if you will. So same thing. You're bringing someone on. Well, that's not what we meant. Okay, well, they're going to get buyer's remorse because they have an assumption based on you saying something, and you had an assumption based on you saying something. But if it's a who's right, who's wrong, we're wrong. Like, we're the writers of the contract.
Welcome back to the Culture Base Podcast. I'm Dustin, he's Blake, and we are the Culture Base. We're here with episode 111. Onboarding is your first retention strategy, and are you blowing it? We have reached the end of June. We are halfway through 2026. I used to think, Blake, when I was a kid and my parents would be like, man, time flies. And I'll be like, I don't know what you're on, but it is dragging where I'm at. And never have I ever been more wrong about anything ever in life. I don't know what's going on. My daughter just turned 13, so we now no longer have a house with kids that are not teenagers. And my wife and I just celebrated 20 years of marriage.
Oh, congrats.
And I don't know where that went. So we're out here, we're doing stuff. Culture Base is here to help leaders know what they're about, show where they're going, and develop a scalable team to get them there before that time runs out on you. And today, Blake, we're going to talk about onboarding, and we were kind of trying to kick around a few ideas on what our next episodes would be about. And honestly, I think this one stuck out to me, Blake, because we at the Culture Base are kind of helping your company, Ridgeline, right now, kind of redefine and refine what onboarding looks like for you. Where did that kind of conversation start for you as kind of like the leader of your organization? Where did that conversation start from you from a business owner side? And then maybe I can take it kind of from like the culture based side of things and how we've been working together.
Yeah. So I think it's one of those things that you have assumptions about your business and about everything you do as if you're doing it right. Like, so it's oh, we worked really hard on this one time to get this where it was. And it's very easy to be like, man, we put a ton of effort into that. I hope that effort's enough to take us for forever, which is not real, right? Like, that's nothing lasts forever. The only constant is change. Like, we could throw out all these little isms out there, but the reality is you don't really know where, when it's time to update things, if there isn't some natural cadence of questioning, is this right? Or do you have certain feedback loops in place to question, is our onboarding process where it needs to be? And the further you get away from an epicenter of anything, the less remembered, actualized, the less pain you remember, the less tension points. Like, you get so far away and it's easy to be like, oh yeah, it's pretty good. We have a pretty good onboarding. Unless you capture that information. And so we were coming up onto, we just hired 6 people in a group kind of setting. And so it just became the time to start questioning once again all aspects. And when you have a team to come together and question all aspects together to say, hey, we're going to go through this, capture the process. Capture what you believe the process is, capture what someone's telling you the process is, capture assumptions. That's a big one. There are assumptions at every level of the organization about your onboarding process because at one point in time it happened or it didn't happen. And you need to start capturing some of those assumptions. So I think it was just a natural place for us to start saying, hey, here's this process. Is it mapped out clearly? And good news, ours was mapped out pretty clearly, which was great, but there have been a lot of little things, and those little things can add up pretty heavily. The death by paper cut can happen pretty quickly, especially even though this is not our first time onboarding. It is our team who's joining our team, their first time onboarding with us.
Yeah.
And so something's said by that, and we need to make sure we're in the right place.
Yeah. And so I think for us on the culture-based side of things, we always talk about hiring the right people, right? We want to put them through the filter of our culture and hire and fire based on our values and things like that. But there's typically a gap that we see, Blake, when we're working with other organizations of putting all the emphasis on hiring. And it's kind of like, all right, we got them, we won, we got the thing that we were after. And then from there, we kind of just like let our hands off the steering wheel and just kind of like coast. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a mistake. I think the hiring portion should serve as the on-ramp to an intentional interstate system. Mm-hmm. Right. And where we're going to direct them from there, what signage we're going to say, what lane we're going to have them be in, what cars they're going to go with, what the carpool lane, right, mm-hmm. looks like. And I think that's where the real retention clock begins, right? Is yes, the hiring experience, you want it to be a positive one, or else they probably wouldn't have accepted the job, or they just accepted the job because they needed the money, right? But the real retention clock starts kind of on day one. Like what happens in those first 90 days is really what determines like whether a new hire becomes like a long-term fit, a long-term asset, or does it just end up costing the business more money anyway because of they just become another turnover statistic. And we've talked about cost of turnover on this podcast before, but it's a real thing. And so go back and listen to those episodes. But Blake, what are some of the things that you've noticed that you've gotten right with onboarding, and some things that you've noticed that you've gotten wrong with onboarding?
Yeah, good question. Before I hit that, I think there is something, and generally we throw this statistic out there, but I don't think we've hit this in a while, but I think it's like 60 to 70% no within the first 2 weeks, whether it's going to be long-term for them or not. Especially because what they're checking into is the confirmation bias, or not confirmation bias. No, actually, yeah, it is. No. Buyer's remorse is what it is. Yeah. It's did I buy into what they said it was? And their brain is looking for that. Is this, they said this, is it this? Right. They said that they care about development. Are they actually? Things we've done right. We've given them what it's going to look like day one. Here's what day one's going to look like. Here's what the first 2 weeks are going to look like. Here are our expectations of you in the first 2 weeks. We line all those things out and showing here's what it's going to be. And then we do it. Yeah. And we follow through those things. And the areas where perhaps we've fallen short is when we haven't followed through on the things we've said we would do. Even if there are things, and it's caused me to be a little more like, I don't want to say tight-lipped, but I'm a visionary and I want to talk about what's possible here. And so it's caused me to slow over vision because they're expecting a follow through within a certain amount of time in their own head that I did not necessarily give. So it's one of those things where instead of me being like, oh yeah, we do this, and this, and then maybe it's not true. Like we don't do all those things, or I thought we did those things. You thought
we did it, but you lost touch.
We thought we did it, but we got away from it. And so there have been, even in this onboarding, it's been fun because they haven't even started yet. We're like doing a ton of the back end work now. And our culture champion here is just like killing it right now, like calling things out. What about this? We said this. How do we want to handle this? And it's giving us opportunity to dig back into, hey, we said we provide tools, but we didn't give clarity on what that meant. We provide tools. Does that mean we provide them free? Does that mean that they have to pay into it? What does that look like? And little things that can be interpreted, like if there's ambiguity and it can be interpreted, it may cost you money, but I would always say be the ownership of that ambiguity. Like if it was just like in contract law, whoever the writer is of the contract owns the aspect of ambiguity, which means if it isn't overwhelmingly clear, the one who wrote the contract is really at fault, if you will. So same thing. You're bringing someone on. Well, that's not what we meant. Okay, well, they're going to get buyer's remorse because they have an assumption based on you saying something, and you had an assumption based on you saying something. But if it's a who's right, who's wrong, we're wrong. Like, we're the writers of the contract, if you will. So, and I know that's not like super sexy culture talk. I just mean like, this is what the pains are in onboarding is, are they getting what they thought they were getting? Can we always own that? No. Did they? Well, I didn't know I was going to have to work. Well, yeah, you do. You do have to work. I'm sorry you had that assumption, but I need to clear that up. You got to work. So there are balances to that, but it is know what fights to battle, what battles to fight rather. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think we do really well at forecasting what we're going to do and then doing it. I think the areas we're needing more improvement is just having everyone on the same page on our internally current team, everyone on the same page of what the process is, how it flows, and what our expectations are.
Yeah. Yeah. And we talk a lot too, Blake, about like to get that understanding, across the team that's already there from top to bottom, who plays what role. Well, I always talk about like inbound and outbound, right? Of what part of the process is inbound to me, like where is it coming from? And then when I'm done with my part, where does it need to go? Like the handoff. So the inbound, outbound, or the importing, exporting, to use the Seinfeld reference, like that we kind of need to know. But in order to kind of know all that and see all that, we talk all the time about documenting processes. And we say that there's four parts of every process that we need to have, right? We need to have the steps, which is like the instruction manual, right? You need step 1, do this. Step 2, do this. Who does it, how they do it, all that type of stuff, right? We need the steps. We need to have the checklist, right? And this is basically like the flight plan checklist, like pilots that have flown for 100,000 hours, they still have a checklist that they hit every single time. Because if they don't and they miss something, it's costing real lives, right? So there's the steps, there's the checklist, then there's a visual, right? For visual learners like me in the back of the room who are just waiting to go, can I see some pictures? Like, we just need to be able to see kind of how it flows from one thing to the next, from hiring to onboarding to fully invested into the company. What does that look like? And then again, for our visual learners, and really even more so for referencing back, right? We live in a culture, Blake, that's in, we would rather watch a video or tutorial on something, right? We're going to go to YouTube to have it have us like, hey, how do I do this, maintenance part in my house? Like, how do I do this thing, right? We're going to go to YouTube rather than we're going to pick up like some book and read about how to do it, right? And call that what you will, good, bad, indifferent, whatever. That's the society that we live in. And so the fourth part of the process is we document it via video. If it's something that can be done on a computer, then we use the Loom video to do it. And if it's something that needs to be done kind of out on the floor or a thing, like you can take everybody has one of these iPhones or some type of a smartphone in their pocket. You just take it, you hit record, you walk through the process, you have it documented, you stick it in a drive in one central location. The folder says the onboarding process. And inside the folder, there's the steps, there's the checklist, there's the visual, and there's the video on how we do it. And so that can be referenced back every single time. I want to go back to something that you said earlier about the percentages, kind of the success, right? The SHRM research company said that employees who have a great onboarding experience are 69% more likely. So I think it was right in that number that you were talking about. They're 69% more likely to stay with a company for 3 years. That's based strictly on their great onboarding experience, right? So having that positive transition experience don't just help us and the new team members feel better, right? It's not a soft culture stat, right? But it's a business case for investing in structured onboarding process. So Blake, as a business owner, what has it looked like for you to use that word investing in a structured onboarding process? What's the investment that you're putting into this and why?
Yeah. I mean, first off, it all drips, right? So the investment in the hiring process, make sure you have the right people, right? You've really spent time filtering, are they the right people? And the next investment is, how do I keep the right people? Which I would I would venture to say having an exceptional onboarding that you invest in is more important than even the hiring. And I know it's yin and yang, but the worst thing is, man, they were great. Why did they leave? That's worse. You know what I mean? Yeah. Instead of, it's a lot easier for me at least to say, I screwed up. We shouldn't have brought that guy in. It's easier. To go, we had good and we dropped it is, that hurts. And so the investment needs to be seen as, what do we invest in to sure keep them, but like that it's the right onboarding. The right onboarding is not making it Disney World. I really don't believe that. I think it's preparing them to be confident in whatever their job is. And no matter what, even if someone is so good at their job or their craft, they're so good at it, they're going to walk into an environment that they do not know and they don't understand. It's your job to help them feel confident in that environment, because you want the best out of someone. Even Jordan, Michael Jordan, if he doesn't feel confident.
Oh, you're talking about Michael Jordan. I wasn't
Michael,
sure.
I just felt like that was important.
When you said Jordan, I was like, well, I don't know if that guy works for you. His name is Jordan.
Yeah. If he's not confident, there's a problem. So onboarding is about building confidence. And a lot of times it's about, like, our confidence is built by competence. So it's bringing people to an awareness of something, whether that's the thing they're doing or it's the environment they're going into, and the expectations. So much of what's exhausting, not for the people doing the onboarding, but the people going through the onboarding, what's exhausting is you're trying to understand the rules of the game. And what are the rules? What is the game? Like, I feel like this is a Seinfeld bit. What are the rules? What are the game? Like, that is what they're trying to go through. And even if you're like, well, I told them this. Yeah, but every other environment, most likely they've been in before they got to your golden environment, they're struggling with still. They said this, but they meant this. They say they're safety conscious, but out in the field, nobody really cares. Like, they're trying to understand the real rules. And that's why it's so important in your investment into your onboarding, is that it looks similar, hopefully exactly like what it should be in a normal day-to-day.
Yeah. Okay. So 2 more short things I want to hit before we wrap up this episode. I want to talk about where culture fits on onboarding. Where do you kind of embed that into your onboarding? And then I want to close up by talking about what are some of the tools that you use, like some practical methods and things like that you use for onboarding for success. So, right, culture. This is the Culture-Based Podcast. This is what we're talking about. Everything filters through and from our culture, right? And it's more than just values. It's more than just words up on the screen. It's the unseen, felt environment that you have created intentionally for your workplace. So if onboarding is kind of like, I mean, they're going to get a little bit of a taste of it during the hiring process because you're hired based on those values. But now it's time to kind of put our money where the mouth is. And we're kind of giving like the why behind our values through this time. So what are some of the ways, Blake, that you guys have kind of woven in the culture values of Ridgeline into the onboarding experience so that they can catch that, right? Because good culture is caught more than taught, right? How can they catch that early on in those first 90 days at Ridgeline?
Yeah. So we talk about culture a lot being just a one word answer is environment, but multiple word in a work environment is the environment that betters their growth. They connect in a community and they connect to the vision, right? Like, those are the 3 pillars in my head of like, man, good culture hits on this, that they're going to connect to the work. They're going to connect to the people. They're going to connect to the environment, and then the environment's going to push them in growth too. And they're going to feel that significant vision that they're after. If you don't invest in every one of those areas at some level, and it doesn't have to be a big investment. We keep using the word invest. And I think perhaps some people quickly go to, oh, it's going to cost a ton. Not necessarily. Effort is investment too. It doesn't cost a dime to show effort. Right. But we would, like, our onboarding process, especially for someone who is green and doesn't have understanding on the electrical field, we like to get them some knowledge pretty quick. We want to make sure that they connect to the work, so they don't even go to the field for 2 weeks, because we want them going through our boot camp process and getting their hands on tools so they feel confident. We're putting them usually in a group so that they're building connection around each other. But then also, like, right after their 2 weeks, we have a big, like, I think we're doing a big cookout or something as a welcome, so that now they get to go meet a bunch of people. We even had one of our people who just onboarded with us come to our boat day that we just had. Again, they're connecting with people to get to know people. And you know what they're going to be doing? Hey, they say these kind of things. Is that really true? Or they're trying to get a good lay of the land. So just investing in ways to offer opportunities for those kind of things. Especially, like, onboarding process is a 90-day thing for us. Like, we're trying to get them up to speed in 90 days, right? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you only have 90 days. Your investment, most likely, the heaviest part of whether they'll believe you or not is in the first 2 weeks. But you've got about 90 days to really prove this is who we are, and you fit that or you don't fit that. And we've got to figure out which one is which here. Yeah.
All right. So as we close, Blake, why don't you share some kind of tools or methods that y'all have used at Ridgeline to help make the onboarding experience a little bit more seamless, a little bit more efficient, whether it be like a buddy system or different milestones or things that they're aware of, or kind of trigger points throughout the way, like, or maybe it's staggered training, or maybe you send them off to this part and then they're handed to this person, like, not necessarily getting in the details of what happens and when, but what are some of those kind of tools or methods that y'all have found that work the best for onboarding at Ridgeline?
First, and the most important, I think, is you have to have a feedback loop to capture things that worked, things that didn't work, things you don't know. And that doesn't have to be some massive platform. That can be an email chain that everyone's kind of following, But one of the things I'd say is, after the first 90 days, 4 years ago, looks very different today, because this is a living, adjusting process that needs to adapt with time, as everything else adapts with time. So at one point, there was no boot camp that we had, a 2 week to get people onboarded. Then we had feedback loop where people are like, man, I'm spending a lot of time training guys where I feel like they could have got a base level. So we created that. Then it was like, hey, we need to have constant coaching for a lot of these technicians, and we need someone focusing on this entry level. So we did that. And then it was like, hey, what if we did, once, halfway through their 90 days, we'll do a thing where they come in and we make sure they're getting fed, if you will, or more specific training. So we did. Then we got a person who would go out to the field to help people. Hey, a foreman would say, hey, so-and-so, Johnny Sue's struggling with this. And so that person who's over that training would go out and help Johnny Sue with that. And then now our team member who's in this place is like, hey, we're going to do, either every other Friday, I'm going to bring them into the shop and we're going to focus on things. So the point is, it's iterative. It's okay. In fact, don't do all at once. It'll be exhausting on you. You won't have the stamina for it, but try to figure out what's the important thing missing. Theoretically, what's the important thing missing, and do one thing. Just add one thing on every new onboarding, so that once it gets to a certain point, it's the right thing.
I love that. And never stop iterating either, right? There's always opportunities to improve. It's why you're listening to podcasts and watching podcasts like this one, is you're always wanting to improve, and those things build great culture. So Blake, next time we're going to be back talking episode 112 about how AI, right? It's here, it's in our workplace, whether we're ready for it or not. How does that impact our culture, and what's some thinking that we need to have around that in order to kind of harness this new everything for good, for the good of our company, for the good of our culture. And we'll talk to you about that next time on the Culture Base podcast. Have a great week.